We're going to start today's episode off with an absolute bang as the San Antonio Spurs have acquired De'Aaron Fox from the Sacramento Kings. And we're going to put the full trade details on the screen. So the San Antonio Spurs receive De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings receive Zach LaVine, Sidi Sissoko, 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks. And the Chicago Bulls receive Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 pick from San Antonio. So a lot to unpack here with this trade. I have a lot that I need to say about this, but I want to know what you guys think first, because this was a massive, massive trade that involves 2 perennial all-star type players. So how do we feel about this trade? Let's start with you, Antoine.
Oh, listen, this trade, we knew it was percolating for a pretty short time. The Kings get it done, a 3-team trade, and this is how a superstar trade goes down. You get assets in return. 6 picks is a phenomenal haul, plus Zach LaVine. LaVine is reunited with DeMar, which is hopefully going to be good for them in Sacktown. No point guard in Sacktown, no, which is really concerning. Malik Monk's taking over that, and maybe Devin Carter as well. But I think the Kings got a really reasonable return for Fox. Spurs, of course, win this trade. They get their point guard for the future. And not giving up any of your young assets in return is a major win. No Stephon Castle, no Devin Vassell, no Sohan, nobody. They give up their most tradable guys probably, which is Zach Collins and Trey Jones. You don't need Trey Jones anymore because you already got a point guard in De'Aaron Fox. You get rid of that guy. Collins makes a lot of money. You move him off to Chicago. And then Huerter as well. The Kings dumped his contract to Chicago as well. So Chicago's kind of just a throwing team for all their, I guess, bad waste they didn't want anymore. And, they have to make room for them. But LaVine gets moved, of course, from the Bulls. They're starting their rebuild in Chicago as well. I think all 3 teams here come out winners in their own respects for what they're trying to do. But I think the biggest winner is definitely the Spurs. Giving up just Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and all their picks were from San Antonio. They had Charlotte's pick in Minnesota, no?
And none of the first-round picks, aside from I think one of them, were from San Antonio.
Okay, so the Charlotte and Minnesota.
So obviously the Bulls got their own pick back from San Antonio, which I believe was from the DeMar trade back or the DeMar whatever trade it was.
Yeah,
like a few years ago. They gave the Kings a Hornets pick and a Wolves pick along with their own. And here's where I heavily disagree, where all 3 teams came out victorious.
Oh,
because only one team came out victorious, and it was the San Antonio Spurs. In fact, both the Kings and the Bulls lost this trade so bad that, look, this would look terrible if Nico Harrison didn't do what he just did the other day. Because, look, think about it this way, right? You make a trade with the San Antonio Spurs. You give up your best player on the team. Like, let's call a spade a spade. De'Aaron Fox was the best player on the Kings, the number 1 scoring option, everything like that. You don't get Stephon Castle. You don't get Jeremy Sohan. You don't get Keldon Johnson. You don't get Devin Vassell. You don't get a single soul from that team. And look, that 2025 first-round pick from Charlotte is lottery protected. It's not going to convey. It's going to turn into 2 second-round picks next year. So that's pretty much a dead asset. The Spurs in 2027 are going to be a playoff team, so it's going to be a late first-round pick. And really the only pick you kind of have some hope for is the 2031 pick from Minnesota from the Rob Dillingham trade. You're banking on Minnesota blowing it up by 2031 when Ant's in his peak. Ant's going to be like in his prime by then. He's going to be like 28.
Okay.
So that's a humongous issue from the Kings' perspective, more in the sense that you got Zach LaVine, you now have DeMar DeRozan, you basically have the Bulls, because Malik Monk is essentially Kobe White, Domantas Sabonis is essentially Nikola Vucevic, and Keegan Murray is essentially Patrick Williams. So it's basically just a slightly amped up Chicago Bulls, maybe? I genuinely don't know. As for the Bulls, you trade DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and Zach LaVine, and you don't get a single first-round pick for any of them. Not one single. You had the Spurs and Thunder involved in all 3 of those trades. You couldn't get back a single first-round pick, or at least one of your own first-round picks, because you've already given up a bunch of them to begin with. So that's kind of the humongous issue I have regarding the Spurs and I mean the Kings and the Bulls. These teams just want to accept being mid, and this just shows no sign of ambition. It shows a sign of humongous front office incompetence. And history showed that since we've been growing up watching the NBA, these have been two of the most incompetent front offices in the league, and they continue to do that.
Yeah. So this all happens right after the Kings fired their head coach. What was his name again?
Mike Brown.
Mike Brown.
So what do you think about that? Like, as soon as that went down, I know you weren't a big fan of that.
I was not.
Were you thinking, like, what's up with this front office? And then did you expect a deal to get done where they weren't on the winning side of that? Like,
I think that was a move to sort of get Fox out the door. I think they wanted to kind of start fresh, but I think they realized that kind of blowing it up is a long process. It's going to take a lot because you'd have to trade Sabonis, you'd have to trade Monk, you'd have to trade a bunch of these guys. So they're trying to do a retool in a stacked Western Conference, which is a stupid decision considering the next few drafts are going to be really good. And I don't know. I mean, this isn't Portland. Portland did the smart thing when they lost the lottery. They made sure they did everything they can for Dame to request out. You get back the first-round picks from Milwaukee. You get back Drew Holiday, who you flipped for more assets. And look what they're probably going to get a bunch of picks and stuff for Robert Williams, Matisse Thybulle, and all those guys now. Yeah. So the Kings, like I said, I tweeted the other day, if the Kings didn't get back a single one of those young pieces, I'm never going to take them seriously ever again. And I really can't, because Zach LaVine's not going to fix your problems. Zach LaVine's a great player, but this is not what the Kings need.
And they needed a guard. They could have easily gotten at least Vassell.
At least Vassell.
Can I counterpoint to the Kings probably have learned their lesson taking back young players like Fox and Halliburton, drafting that they're going to want out eventually?
Well, I mean, both of them didn't want out. Right. I mean, the whole Halliburton wanted to stay. The whole Fox thing now, this is his agent. His agent wanted him to go to San Antonio to get the big money and win the championships. Because let's face it, Sacramento is a small market team. They're not the best front office. They're a well constructed team as they are now. But one first round appearance and you lost a series you should have won. So you were a Steph Curry 50 ball away from going to the conference finals most likely. So that's the one thing. I just can't really get past this with Sacramento. Like how do you not get back a single good first round pick in this trade? That's a humongous problem. I'd rather them get no picks and Devin Vassell, because that Charlotte pick isn't even worth anything. Yeah. Just like that Washington pick the Knicks have. That's not going to convey.
I think the Kings' mindset is that they don't want to rebuild.
Right, they don't.
That's the main thing, because you should ask for Stephon Castle, Vassell, even Sohan. Sohan could have got dumped off easily.
Exactly.
And you're going to just LaVine, and I guess, I don't know who City Sissoko is, but
he was their second round pick the year they drafted Wemby.
But just LaVine, you're banking on just LaVine. You're banking on all these, I guess, stars playing together. Well, Monk's not really a star, but really good role player. And then Sabonis as well. It's like you said, running the Bulls back with a more, I guess, younger center in Sabonis and just DeMar LaVine, and that's really much it. Keegan Murray is essentially Patrick Williams.
Yeah.
Think of it really the same thing.
Think of it kind of like what Dallas is doing now. You essentially are going to try and win games by committee. Yeah. But look, let's call a spade here. That Dallas team, as bad as they're going to be without Luka Doncic, I would take them over this Kings team right now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obvious. It's clear as day, if you ask me.
Let's get your thoughts on the whole thing.
Your
thoughts for all three sides.
I'm going to take my victory lap because I predicted this.
You did, to be fair. You did.
Give me my credit.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox going to San Antonio. I think that's going to be pretty cool to watch.
Oh, absolutely.
Fastest player in the league, paired up with the most freak, not athlete, but just freak player.
Alien.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to watch for sure. And then on the Kings side of things, I think I agree with you, Tyler, where originally I was more like neutral. I was like, they didn't do too bad. But now it's like where you brought up your points, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like they really could have got at least Devin Vassell, you know?
Well, because even I saw 3 first-round picks, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I saw where they were from, and I'm just like, they Kingsed.
Yeah.
So
that's rough, man. It hurts. I mean, the Kings, it looks like they're setting up to be mediocre for the next, like, I don't know, 5 to 7 years or something. And it's
might be more than that, to be honest with you.
5 to 10, maybe.
I mean, because think about it, like when all these, if they're going to fail, right, we know this, and in 2 to 3 years, if you're like Sabonis, do you want out?
Get out of there.
Yeah,
get the hell out of there, Sabonis.
You have to. You have like virtually no choice, and they have no good pick.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of tanking, but I'm also not a fan of like being mediocre and just bad business. And that's what's going on with the Kings right now. So
And the Bulls?
the Bulls, what did the Bulls get?
The Bulls got Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Herter, and their own pick back for just this year's draft.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing crazy. Nothing that's going to move the needle, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I just think the Bulls' problem is more so what they got in total for all three of their best players, being Levine, DeRozan, and Caruso, because they all left in the past like 6 months, and you got one first-round pick. Like you made a trade with the OKC Thunder, and you got back Josh Giddey.
Hey, don't hate on him. He's balling this year.
He's cooking,
The Thunder
but
have
they could've got
30.
more.
The Thunder have 30 picks. You couldn't even get back a second. Like that's it's just wild.